Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for the folks joining us from EMEA and APAC. Hopefully, people are able to tune in a little later. First, want to thank everyone who may have joined us or tried to join us at IT Nation Secure in Orlando a few weeks for our session. That was cut short during a fire drill or fire alarm. We never really found out if it was a drill or an alarm, but either way, we got about 20 minutes into our session and we're cut short. So we're very grateful for the chance to come back today and present some great content for all of you, including some new folks who may be joining us that weren't at IT Nation Secure. So a big thank you to the IT Nation team for pulling this off so quickly and setting up this great day packed with some great content. I'll introduce myself. I'm Bree Allen, and I lead our partner marketing team here at ConnectWise. I've been with ConnectWise for about 2.5 years now, and I've had just about every role on our partner marketing team. Been on the partner marketing team since partner program started back in 2021, and throughout the last few years, I've seen partner program really grow and develop into something great. And one of the biggest pivotal points for us in our journey in partner program was this past January when we partnered with a company that some of you may have heard of called GlassHive. And GlassHive really changed the way that we're doing everything and it really changed what we're offering our partners. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the co-host of today's session, Gio, CEO of GlassHive, who is going to lead us through some really exciting things that we're doing for partner program and marketing in general. So Gio, without further ado, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, it's hello to you wherever you are out there in the virtual world. It's nice to meet you. It's been a blast working here with Bree and her team and the broader ConnectWise team. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today. I am the founder and CEO of GlassHive, and GlassHive is a CRM and marketing automation platform built from the ground up for MSPs. We integrate with everything you love, including ConnectWise Manage, and we have a lot of really great content and workflows. And the platform is growing. We're doing good things, and we're here to talk to you today about that a little bit.
All right, so what do we have in store for you today? Well, we're going to do this a little different than other sessions. We're not very PowerPoint heavy. We're going to be really just conversational, talking to you guys about what we're seeing in marketing, what we're seeing that works. With my partner program marketing team, we work with hundreds of partners, probably thousands of partners really on a yearly basis, and get a chance to find out what's working, what's not working, some kind of tips and tricks in the industry. And same with Geo. They have 20,000 some clients over at GlassHive that they've experienced. They've learned what's working, what's not working in the IT marketing industry. So talk through some tips and tricks we have and focus on, hey, how do we really communicate our value to our clients? Walk through a few other surprises that Geo has in store for us, and take a minute to dive into GlassHive. Geo's going to give us a great demo, show us a little bit about GlassHive, and show us where the magic happens there. And I think he even might have some surprise, some roadmaps to show us about some things that are coming up. So let's jump right into it, Geo. Let's start off with. Let's talk about what marketing really is in general. I think this is something that a lot of companies struggle with. When we look to communicate our value to our audience, it sometimes that's where a lot of people get stuck. Can you give us a little bit of insight into this, Gio?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, guys, in more of a conversational format, just kind of taking marketing off the pedestal, if you will. I think when you think of the term marketing and you think of what the industry thinks that it is, it becomes this daunting thing of wizardry or analytics, or you have to have some special skill in order to get it right. And every conference you go to, they can talk about a million different ways to go to market and best marketing strategies, and that leaves most of us trying to figure out where to start. I always kind of like to just simplify things, because I think once you kind of understand how basic it is, it'll give you a little bit more comfort to start. So marketing is just communication. That's all it is. particularly rich media communication, because you're leveraging, not only words, but text, images, audio, video, anything that help you convey a message more simply, right? Um, that's why infographics are so great and so loved, right? They have a very good way of communicating stats, values, numbers in a way that's very easy to digest, right? Without having to read a whole novel about it. So once you understand that that's all that it is, you'll understand, you'll give yourself a baseline of how to go ahead and approach it, right? And adjust your communication style. As you guys know, communication is the key to any great relationship. So the quality of how you communicate with your customers to communicate the value that you provide, what makes you different, building those relationships, that all came from communication. Okay. And you're subtly marketing with everything that you do, with every ticket that is generated, that is sent to them, to let them know that their ticket is being worked on. That is a form of communication, very specifically a graphical HTML that lets them know where their ticket is at. When you ask them for a survey, or to give them, to give you a survey on how well that ticket was or how their service was, those are all marketing things. So you're actually doing marketing every single day as you do your daily job. It's now simply just applying those same tactics towards a different audience, customers that don't know about you yet and what makes you different. New staff do you want to hire? That's marketing too. You got to, make sure that they're excited to come work for your company, what the opportunity is, and clearly identify that. When you onboard a new customer and that experience, also marketing. Marketing is simply involved with anything that is involved with communication. So, with that being said, you'll understand how to approach it, I guess, in a little bit more of a basic format. The tactics and the other stuff doesn't matter as long as you have a good communication strategy first. Then we'll talk about multiple ways to deploy that.
So Gio, what you're saying is we're always marketing, whether we're doing so intentionally or not. Everything that we're doing and everything that we're really communicating is marketing to our audience.
That is correct. Every single email, every single thing you do, it's marketing. We even have signature blocks in our emails. Isn't that fun? Why? Right? It's like, it's marketing. Your logo, your little thing. It's funny. I know it sounds really basic, but for all of us that feel like we never do marketing, we're never going to get started. You're actually doing it all the time. It's just this. They put this guard up, or they put it up on this pillar when it comes to trying to win new customers, as this unsolvable, puzzle or something like that. It's funny.
So I think as marketers, or people getting into marketing, or trying to communicate their value to their audience, to their clients and prospects, we tend to overcomplicate things quite a bit. And I think that's where this next slide kind of talks about is people really, simplicity is best. We don't need to overcomplicate. We don't need to lead with technical. Sometimes simplicity is really the most important thing that you can do when you're communicating your value to your audience.
You bet. And this is predominantly found in literally everything tech related, guys. When you think of your UI UX strategy, the wonderful thing about what iOS did when Apple came out with the iPhone, the interface is so intuitive. You can see it. Those of you with children and infants, they can navigate, a phone and find it is what they want. At a couple months old, or 6 months plus, a year, these kids are already doing things. It just kind of tells you the genius of how they simplified a very complicated piece of tech, right? What we hold in our phones is more powerful than what sent Apollo 13 to the moon. But a child can navigate it. And very simply, when you communicate with anyone, whether you're teaching somebody something new, your ability to simplify it not only boosts their confidence in what they're doing, they obtain it and they start to thrive, right? So simplifying what you're doing is really, really key. And that's going to require a couple of tactics, like drilling into the tactics a little bit more. This slide that you're seeing now, you're clearly seeing it. People will read headlines and subheadings, and they read some bullets. They skim through content because we're consuming information more than ever on this. We're scrolling, and just glance over things, and we're being inundated all the time. And whatever you can do to simplify that message to make sure that you get rid of the noise. I know that's hard when you're explaining something like technology, but it's really like a exercise of hoarders. I don't know if you guys ever watched that reality TV show where they like it's like a whole hour of the drama that goes through just getting rid of half your stuff, you know, and
Guilty
they go,
pleasure. Guilty pleasure of
yeah,
mine.
so for sure, it's like you're just watching them cry and throw things into the pile, and then after it's done, they're like, "Great, cut it in half again." And you're like, "Impossible." It feels that way when it comes to marketing, but I promise you, if you go through that strategy and you just chip away at what um, all the extra noise and focus on what's truly important, right? Not only will you find that the message will come through a lot clearer and the intent behind what you want people to do, that next call to action will be clear, but you also will be actually doing a marketing best practice, which is curiosity. Okay. The only thing that makes people take the next step is curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat. It is the best strategy when it comes to marketing. If you guys don't know who the best marketers are, okay, and nowadays kind of bad, but Hollywood, all right, Hollywood will give you a trailer that is, well, nowadays it can be up to 3.5 minutes, but a minute and a half, and they're using every aspect of curiosity inducing behavior, right? Glimpse of value, the best parts of the movie, right? Newness and exclusivity, never before seen special effects. Herd theory, Rolling Stone gives it 2 thumbs up. Look at all the critic reviews. They're like splashing you with every technique for curiosity. You're like, oh my God, I got to see it. And you'll go there and spend your money and sometimes watch garbage, right? It's like complete garbage, but they've made hundreds of millions of dollars, right, over a course of a weekend. That's probably the most drastic case of marketing that you can see for a film, Um, but in the same thing too, when you're doing your own marketing, less is always more. Um, Again, you leveraging the trailer example when Star Wars rebooted, or not essentially rebooted, but the sequel to Revenge of the Sith came out. Everything was very basic. You saw the X-wings a little bit. You saw a lightsaber go off. You saw very little of what the movie was, but you knew it was Star Wars. You knew it was something new, and theaters were sold out everywhere. Lines outside to go get it. Right. So those are the types of things that is always good when you're talking about the strategy. Less is more. Simple is better, and it'll drive curiosity, which you'll find will get you more leads.
Yeah, and Gio, something that we do with our partners when we're looking at creating marketing strategy to talk about a complex solution or a complex tool, I challenge people to, okay, put this solution or this tool in terms that your grandma would understand, right? And it's kind of fun sometimes. We've done this exercise live, and the way that people will describe things, it's pretty funny to see. I know a SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, was one that we did recently, and the technical definition, I mean, that's not something Main Street would understand. And when our SMB clients, they're not going to understand the technical side. And if we lead with something technical on the marketing end, they're not going to click it. They're not going to open it. It's not going to phase them. But we break it down to a level that they understand. That's where I think that's where we really see the difference. And hey, market to your grandma, right? Put it in terms that your grandma can understand.
Yeah, exactly. And there's to touch on that real quick. I know we got to go to more things, but I get this pushback since we're talking to the MSP audience all the time. Yeah, but I sell co-managed services, or I sell to the IT director, or I sell to whatever. That's like the thing. And you think that their status or their level of education or what you think they come to expect, because you mirror yourself in those people, that they need a lot more information. And they want to know how specific the solution works. I don't disagree with you. It's what they're willing to trade to get access to it. There's an exchange to all this, right? If you look at a structure of, and I'm just going to pick an email campaign, for example, okay? It is broken up in a series of microtransactions in its most simplest form. Number one is the subject line. That is the only thing that'll get you to open that email, right? And literally best practices, right? You have 21 characters to get it right. If you're going best practices, forcing you to be as simple as that. too advertising, too pitchy, too whatever, exclamation points, you're going to lose them right there. They won't even open it. So that first subject line that is curiosity inducing, something that is want to be of value, then they go, okay, I'm going to take the next action to take a look at your email content. Then again, can't pitch them on email and just the whole thing. They're never going to do that. Emails are smaller format. They're going to consume it. They may see a button and like, okay, this is even a little more interesting. And then they'll click again, right? And then either end up at a landing page or perhaps a more in-depth asset where you can go into more detail. What you got to do is modern technology today will let you track those interactions. And you're wanting to see what the buy-in is at each level, right? So when you think about that, you have to be overly technical or overly detailed because you're dealing with this persona. All people, all founders, all CIOs, they're all inundated. And if they're good at their job, they're busy, have a lot of things going on, and this phone is going all crazy. They just don't have the time to invest in a super technical deep dive until they've exchanged that through buying into your little microtransactions, your most simplest form of what you have to offer. So again, regardless of your audience, don't forget the simplicity is the only way to buy into the next step. Okay.
All right. So we're always communicating. We're all marketing
Yeah.
all the time in every interaction.
Yes.
Simplifying, leading with a simple message, something that's going to impact your audience, very important. Another area that's extremely important and an area that I know we work with our partners quite a bit on, and an area that a lot of our partners, and I think the MSP space in general, struggles with is finding a differentiator. At the end of the day, a lot of our MSP providers, we're all kind of doing the same thing, right? And we say, like, well, what sets you apart? What are you known for? Hey, I provide the best IT services in the tri-state area. I'm the best MSP in Dallas. I'm the best MSP in Tampa. Well, if you're the best MSP, you're the best technology solution provider, you're the best. Like, who really is the best? When we're all providing similar services, saying you're the best at what you do really doesn't become your differentiator. So I think that's where we need to peel back a bit and look a little closer at what is your business's differentiator.
I love this. This is like my favorite part. Okay. I love
This is where
that
the magic
the
happens.
differentiation thing. This is where the magic happens. Okay. We're about to step into in my magical world right now. All right. Now, I love that. I love that what you just segued with because I hear it all the time. Partners will go, yeah, I am the best. I offer the best service. How do you prove that? It's it's as if signing the agreement or winning the contract is ever who can build the infrastructure the fastest. Deploy 10 Teslas to the cloud right now. The one who does it fast wins. It's like we can't prove that. And we talk about my response time and ticketing, quality of service. Okay, response time is also related to lead response time. I see a lot of partners that go and generate lots of leads. Some sales professionals will leave that lead hanging there for a day or two. That's the only correlation to your company's service response time that prospect has. They're experiencing it right there. All right. So demystifying this whole thing, the one thing that makes us just like everybody else is the services that we offer. That is the one thing that makes us just like everyone else. And it's the one thing everybody goes to market with. They go to market with BDR, they go to market with cybersecurity, they go to market with managed services, VoIP, you name it. We're like leading with the thing that makes us just like everybody else and then struggle with like, how do I differentiate myself? And I always find that funny because we go to these events. Secure was a wonderful event, but there's a trade show full of vendors that we could all partner with the same vendors and literally have the same message. What makes you different is not what you sell or what you deliver or the solutions you offer. It's how you deliver them. Okay. It's your people. Computers don't reach out and support your customers. Your people do. It's your vision, your philosophy around great customer service and what that means. Your process is the best thing you have. Some of you started your own MSP because you left another MSP thinking you could do it better. And you created a philosophy and the way you do your ticketing triage and the way you escalate technical issues, the way you solve a customer, the way you communicate with a customer when you're solving a technical problem. All those things, all that process, all that wonderful IP that is your internal documentation, that's unique about you. That's something no one else has. And if you turn that internal documentation into external documentation, which is your marketing materials, it'll be the best marketing material you've ever sent out in your life because no one else can replicate it. Nobody, I've had the pleasure of visiting, 2,000 plus IT companies across my 20-year career. They all have a unique flavor of how they deliver their services. Your infrastructure, you do you understand that your customers can never replicate some of the knocks and service desks that I've seen at your guys' offices? The investments you made in Brightgauge to watch their environment and be on top of it better than they ever could. Some of you structure your service team in pods and have different people watching different things. Are you crazy? And we never show that. We'll hide that with the stock image. It blows my mind. These millions of dollars of investment over the years in talent, personnel, process, technology, visibility, and we just don't share it with the customer, giving them the confidence that look at the infrastructure I built to manage your business better than you ever could. You know what I mean? So how you do what you do is different. I always use this example because it's wonderful. If we all owned a chocolate factory today, right? And you take the whimsical stuff out of Willy Wonka, what are we left with? Conveyor belts, big machines that mix the chocolate, right? Or you can be in Willy Wonka's world, which is why the movie was so fascinating. I don't mix. I'm the only chocolate factory in the world that mixes chocolate by waterfall, right? His people, right? He doesn't have normal people. He has special Oompa Loompas, special employees that sing and dance and do this whole thing. Like his people are even special. His infrastructure, everything is edible. There's R&D and they're doing experiments. It's freaking wild. And how they make the chocolate, his vision of what he wanted for the world, all these bullets are encapsulated in that. So I ask you to think to yourself, do you want to be another chocolate factory that's just there marketing your ingredients and some pretty packaging? Or do you want to bring people into your world, right? Your Willy Wonka, your own chocolate factory that's magical and has all these things. And each one of you have that within your own offices. So I'd focus on that.
Well, we may not have edible computers and waterfalls that are mixing chocolates at our MSPs. Everyone has something special, and this next, I would like to show this video that really shows. It's an example that shows, hey, we're taking a different spin on how we're talking about our MSP services and really finding something unique to this specific MSP. So let's see if this will play.
So
Play.
before you launch that, Bree, I'm just going to preface it. So to give you guys this, right? I know it's kind of abstract what I just told you. Find what's special about you. But in the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we all have different hobbies and different things that we're into. This one company out of Reston, Virginia, the owner, she loves to cook, right? She's a Harvard graduate, and she runs an IT company. But at the end of the day, she's also a mother and a wife, and she loves cooking, and that's just like her thing. Like many other, male and female entrepreneurs all over the country. Okay, so what she did was we combined her love for cooking and combined it with how she delivers IT. And beyond this video, it extends to newsletters and things that have nothing to do with technology, where she just shares her recipes to connect in a human way with her audience and what her special qualities are. So with that, go ahead, Bree. Show the video. It's pretty cool.
Cooking is my getaway activity. It really gets me away from everything. But I think some of the reasons I like it are that it requires a plan and it requires preparation. But there's also a lot of multitasking and making a plan on the fly when you need to. One thing I think that IT and cooking have in common is multitasking. IT demands that you be able to do a couple things at once. Keep your eye on a couple different factors. Keep in mind, risk. Keep in mind cost. Keep in mind the business that your client is in. It's a fun thing, and it helps you with all kinds of relationships.
The biggest thing is we don't go for the flavor of the month. Certain things are applicable and they're good. And I mean, we don't just run in and say, okay, everybody, the cloud, you need to do the cloud today. The cloud is good for some things and it's not good for other things. And so we ask, what are they trying to accomplish? What's the solution or problem you're trying to solve or the opportunity you're trying to take advantage of? And we match whatever is the right technology to fit that particular application. So I think that's a real uniqueness for us.
What we try to do then is look at that equipment, processes, anything else, and just try to look at it from a business standpoint, not an IT standpoint. So we're looking at budgeting for clients and things like that. So you've got your day-to-day things which break, and sure, we're going to monitor that things. We're going to look forward, but where's the company want to go? How do you want to leverage IT to accomplish whatever your goals are? The more we can document, the more we can standardize, the more easily we're able to support our clients.
There's a certain set of core configurations that you've got to have, and those get filled out in the initial onboarding. So we spend a lot of time up front. When we get a new client, there's many man-hours that go into that onboarding.
Our outward culture is very community focused. We, in addition to working with our clients, we're involved in many parts of the community, whether it be volunteering for and assisting nonprofits that are important to us. We've got all kinds of massive growth, so we will try to participate in the community. We are a family, we're big on life balance. Everybody works from home at least one day a week. We have a lot of comedians in the company, which I really like. We're not dictatorial guys, and I don't know. I think that's what our employees would say.
I think the lasting imprint is businesses that have become successful because they could focus on their business, and we make sure that their IT is running well.
Yeah. So, great video. Is done years ago, but one of my favorites. And there's tons of different examples like this, guys, that we can send you afterwards. If you comment, in the chat, you want to see more examples, let us know and we'll send you more. But again, there's nothing talked about. There was no specific solution being pushed. This was a tour into the investment and the people, philosophies, culture, and everything, the methodology that BEI has to offer as a company. And where else are you going to see something like that, And every one of you have a story, and you have your own unique things. And there's just really creative ways to get that out there. So I hope that you focus on your differentiator so you can see the difference it makes when generating leads.
And Gio, if I remember correctly, this MSP ended up landing a handful of clients in the food industry, specifically from this market.
That is correct. Yeah. Not only that, hospitality too. It's just you're gonna find that persona. It's like it's weird because when we think about marketing, like go to personas and like we're gonna talk to CIOs or we're gonna talk to healthcare and we have this stigma around who they are based on what they like their career path or what they do for work. And we never we look at it like that, like these are your business pain problems, and that's what everybody does. This is a way of going after persona, a different persona of people, these people that are just like who you are, and they like what you like, which ends up becoming better clients for you on the service desk. You guys just get along better. You have a simple philosophy. You can talk about other things. It's a tremendous way of just finding your ideal client from a culture, philosophy, vision perspective. Which just leads to better relationships and easier talks around increasing their investments and all those types of things. People work with people they like.
Yeah, absolutely. So finding your differentiator, whatever that may be, everyone has something that makes them special, and really focus on that and help use that in what sets your company apart.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to sprint through these a little bit here, Gio, because I want to make sure that we have enough time to dive into the Glass Hive demo. So before we jump into value exchange, one thing I want to point out is for those who were with us in person in Secure a few weeks ago, we started the session by leaving a workbook, a marketing strategy, IT marketing guide on every desk or every seat of the session. And I think that was a way that we started off a little bit different than other sessions. We provided value by providing this workbook session, this workbook for all of the attendees. And don't worry, we have a virtual version that you all have access to. We have a QR code at the end of the session here. But I think that's a good start to talking about what the value exchange is.
Yeah, so I'll try to get through this quickly. I know I'm long-winded. So the value exchange. This is extremely important when you're doing marketing, even if you're promoting different solutions. With every marketing interaction you create, okay, I want you to think of how do I give 10 times more value out than I expect to get back? Okay, that's a very different take on marketing because what we typically do, even when we try it, we just start to advertise. Hey, you, it's me. Check out what I have to offer. You want to buy it? Like if you boil down what it is, as creative as the content is, that's what you're doing, you know? And some of these people don't know you or maybe get an email from you every once in a while. If it's your existing clients, it's still very one-sided in value. Hey, do you want a free consultation? Hey, you, yeah, then give me your information first. Like you give me, then I give you. And I just realized that, through those of you that may have read The Go Giver and just a bunch of different practices, if you focus on what you deliver out and you say, how can I give out 10 times more value than I expect to get back? Perhaps use some of that internal documentation, right? Call it, next time you send an email, you have a cybersecurity checklist or a backup and disaster recovery test checklist. And I know that's something we leverage as like, oh, if you're not doing all these things, then you probably don't have a good backup strategy. Just give it away. We have technology now that can track what people are doing. Don't put any gates in front of it. No forms, no landing page, and make sure you write that in the email. Something tangible that can help that business or that person receiving that email from you have a better business experience today. You're talking to a CIO who's probably managing a million things and doesn't know if they have a proper backup checklist or just curious if these up to best practices. We'll download that list and compare it and tactically use it. And what happens is when you start to give things like that, you start to give away things that people deem helpful, you begin to win their mind share, which opens them up to an opinionated piece from you. It's kind of like those of you that have looked up a how-to video on YouTube. Maybe you're looking at how to do a technical repair of something or something broke in your house. Like, oh, let me look at a YouTube video on how to fix it. And you'll find somebody that gives a great video of exactly how to fix it. It was super helpful. And you run into that same person over 2 or 3 different things you've needed over the course of the year. And then that you begin to like that person's content so much you subscribe. It's the same thing because they're just providing all this value out that has helped you in your day, right? And you tend to you reciprocate that. So I always try to take that into every marketing piece that you do. Direct mail strategy. We have this big, beautiful box in the room. I can't demonstrate it for you guys here. The next event we do, we'll have it. Bree has everything. It's just that whole monstrous thing. But direct mail. If you guys have ever experienced direct mail before, everybody's like, yeah, send out I sent out 5,000 postcards once, man. I spent, I don't know, 10 grand and it was awful. I got nothing back, and they drink about it. Marketing's tough. It sucks. It's hard. And I'm like, what did you offer? Like, what does a glossy postcard offer anybody? Is that of any value? Does that create any different experience? Right? So, when you think about the 10x value, I would reduce that scope. Instead of doing 5,000 postcards, how do I create 5 unforgettable pieces with the same amount of money? So those people, when they come across my brand, have an experience unlike any other. And that box you saw there, without going into it, is an example of clients that we've had that have created boxes, sent them out. You open the flap, there's a video in it. There's typically a gift of technology. I've seen everything from Apple Watches to big computers demonstrating the value of being able to work in a hybrid device where you can draw on the screen or you can use it as a desktop. There's a million different components to this, but the fact of these people opening something, getting something meaningful, the quality around it, I can't begin to tell you, you know, when I was still trying to get ConnectWise as a client, I had sent that out and they were passing it around their office. You know, it's just one of those things that just has delight. It makes you smile. You have all those types of things. So again, we go more into it, but just think about that when you're doing your marketing. 10 times more value you expect to get back.
And with that, I think that now's a good time to jump into a Glass Hive demo, especially when we're talking about providing some tangible assets to our audience. You know, when we're sending that email, adding in a checklist, adding in something that they can actually start using and help provide that value. So where do we get those kind of things, Gio? Do you know any place where we might be able to find checklists and some valuable assets that our clients and prospects might be able to use?
Yes, and to just kind of segue the value really quickly, ConnectWise is also one of those folks that believe in the value exchange. So what you're seeing here and what I'm about to demo, if you are in their partner program at a certain level, they cover this cost completely. If you're not part of the partner program but would like to get access to it, they cover still 90% of the investment of what we're about to take a look at. Okay, so we'll get into this. This is something that ConnectWise partners, you guys will have access to. If you get to go to glasshive.com, you can use your single sign-on, use your ConnectWise credentials to get access to the platform. But this is a marketing and sales automation platform. It's got a lot of AI. It's got a lot of really good things to get you started. On the topic of our conversation, let's talk about how easy it is to get to market with some of these valuable things and some of these differentiators. You'll start at our studio. Our studio is really great because it contains a library, unlike HubSpot or Salesforce, where you have to go create content in there in order to get it to do something. You will here find emails, landing pages, marketing collateral, infographics, flyers, proposals, workflow automations like journeys, drip marketing campaigns, social media. And this is also the platform that sends it all out for you. Okay. So it's a great platform for you to do that, but it takes it one step further. So as you can see, not only will you have wonderful content from Glasshive, but you will find content in here from ConnectWise. They've committed to adding content every single month on the topics you want to learn about or you want to get out to market that are hot, things like AI, cybersecurity. But you can go ahead and enter into our marketplace and connect with the vendors that you work with. And if they have marketing materials available, but the second you make those connections, that content will become available inside of your studio. But the best thing about this is you'll look at this content, you'll say, okay, this is all great. This looks cool, but how do I use it? I have to get a designer and I have to figure out how to put it in my branding and all that kind of stuff. I want to use this campaign on AI that ConnectWise created. It's really cool, but I got to brand all this stuff. Well, with our AI and while you're at work, let me show you how fun this is, okay? All you're going to do is enter in your URL. For the sake of example, I'm going to use pinkberry.com. And just like that, okay, our AI is going to get to work and it's going to pull in all your branding guidelines, your logos, your color scheme, your fonts, button preference, button styles, social media handles, all your contact information. And it's going to magically transform and redesign the hundreds of thousands of assets inside the studio so you can get to market today. So now that when we go back into the studio, we're back in it. And now let's go take a look at that campaign again that we were just on. And look at the preview. And look at that. It's been fully rebranded and redesigned, ready for me to go. All I have to do is literally click here, create the campaign. It's already got a category. I choose the name it comes from.
And for anyone who's ever had to download PDFs and edit them in Canva or in Adobe, I mean, this is doing what would normally take hours and hours. It does it in seconds for hundreds and hundreds of assets. I know this, when I first saw this was the wow factor for me as someone who did a lot of content creation. I mean, this is, whether you're doing your own, you're creating your own assets, or you have a marketing person that's doing it, this is the game changer.
And thank you, Bree. It's just really cool. So yeah, this 3-month AI campaign, we could just get started tomorrow. It's literally just like that. And like magic, that campaign's ready to go, and you're going to be generating leads. To give you an idea, okay, ConnectWise put a couple partners into a secure Microsoft AI kind of branded campaign that they did, you know, and within the first week, 9 partners generated a combined total of nearly 4,000 leads. That's how amazing and fast it's been able to work. But like Bree said, everything, like we don't want you guys, we know that you guys don't have graphic designers or those things, and you guys want to customize some of the content. This is not a vendor platform. This is your line of business application. You're in control. So every bit of content that is available here, okay, let's pull up a piece of collateral. All right, let's take a look at this infographic right here. I'm going to pull this up. And look, it's rebranded everything for me. But if I wanted to make anything bigger, I can click around, edit any of the information, any of the text, anywhere I want, just like Canva. No additional cost. It's built right in for you guys. But the Magic Branding did an amazing job anyway, getting it out the gate. So as much or as little as you guys want to customize it, or those of you that are thinking of having your salespeople that don't have any marketing materials and instantly arming them with infographics, case studies, flyers for every single service you offer, they're empowered overnight. And even if they don't have a good process, okay, on how to, oh my gosh, how do I go about approaching all these leads and setting, you know, and taking advantage of all this great material, you could literally just even use some of the journeys. Check this out. This is pretty cool. If you need sales process around selling cybersecurity, okay, let's take a look at this. We'll take a look at cybersecurity journey. Just click on that and look how easy it is. This automation has been fully built for you. You can customize it and swap the emails. Again, it has all the magic branding, but based off the specific things your prospect does, it'll move them down the sales process. At this point, round robin, assign it to your sales professional, assign a call task that already has the qualifying questions to ask. You know, it's got everything it does. And you can even add a step. Hey, after this call, I want you to change the condition, update the contact here, and I'm going to change the contact status to qualified. Okay. Simple, fun, easy way to play automation to take your customers and take advantage of every single sales opportunity. So you have the perfect response time and you're diligent. And all this investment you made to realize your engineers to be more billable than ever before, now your salespeople are going to have that same efficiency and the same effectiveness to be great at doing their job at scale. And this is all already pre-built, so you have something to start with on every solution, on every topic you can think of. So it's pretty great. Like I said, from a content creation delivery standpoint, we can do a lot more and get into you know, just specifics of social media or different campaigns and all the different analytics. But it is also full CRM. So all of this is synced today with ConnectWise Manage or any other PSA that you use. So it's got all the data that'll migrate over. If you guys have contracts with HubSpot, we have so many partners. If you look at our reviews, that they use HubSpot and their contracts, they still under contract, but they want to use us. We also integrate with HubSpot and Salesforce, so you can use them as a bridge together. But you have the ability to track your pipeline, see what stages they're all in, see the weighted value based on your stages that you put in here and the probability of closure between each stage, how much likely revenue you're going to collect. Okay, even a Kanban view to drag these from stage to stage. You guys have full capabilities to take your contacts from first contact to signature, all within Glass Hive in an easy to use platform.
Gio, and I know we could demo this all day, and hey, we're available for partners who want to learn even more about it. We're going to continue to be doing some live stream sessions, and we have weekly workshops, webinars that our partner program team is offering as well. So I know we have a few pieces of content that we wanted to share with you guys, and some QR codes to quick scan. I know I promised you all that virtual version of our fantastic 12-step guide for marketing. So please scan this QR code. I promise it's safe. I know it's a cybersecurity virtual session, but hey, I promise that QR code is good to use. So check out that 12-step guide. I also have some information here about ConnectWise University. So partner program is offering, I believe we have 30 plus courses right now, enablement courses, really helping prepare you to go to market in different areas. So check these out. These are available for all partners, all ConnectWise partners. Let's see. I do want to, if you're not a ConnectWise partner, if you're not in the partner program, scan this QR code. You'll learn about a few different levels we have. We've recently released a new partner program level called Emerging, which offers benefits for partners who may not have been quite ready to join at our accelerate strategic levels in the past. So scan this QR code, start unlocking some of these great benefits that we've been talking about. And before we wrap up, I know we're a few minutes over, but we did promise some sneak peeks into what's to come. And for those who joined our in-person session, promised we'd give you something new that we didn't cover. So Gio, can you tell us a little bit more about some magic that's on the horizon?
Yes. Okay. Let's go into a couple big things, guys. Our Wally, our AI, is evolving. Our language model, we've taught Wally to speak IT. It knows the channel. It's smart with managed services. The insights that Wally's going to be able to give you within your Glass Hive experience around what collateral you should use now, how to help write your emails, how to help write effective IT marketing content. All those capabilities are here and they're coming soon. The other thing that's a good sneak peek that's on the way is we have a current feature inside of Glass Hive, and you get to demo at Client Solutions Roadmap. But the ability for Wally to see what services you have not sold to your existing customer base, and its ability to recognize that, dollarize the unsold potential across your entire customer base, and organize a magic branded campaign automatically to those customers to help you automatically cross-sell into those revenue gaps, is something that'll be available here also in the next quarter that we're really excited about. So again, think about having the smartest virtual CMO working with you that understands the channel, that is watching millions of campaigns and millions of sales activities to help you execute the right behavior at the right time so that all of you can grow your business in a data-driven way.
And best part of all this, ConnectWise Partner Program is offering this to our partners, complimentary for a lot of levels and at a very reduced cost for pretty much any ConnectWise partner. So again, scan this QR code, learn more about it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us after. I think we're probably short on the Q&A time, but as always, we're more than happy to jump on calls, talk through some of these great benefits. And really want to just thank everybody for taking the time to join us today. And a big thank you, especially to anybody who came back to join us for round two, and for those who were in person and secure that came back to catch the rest of the session that they may have missed. So thank you all. We look forward to connecting with you.
Likewise. Thank you, everybody.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me and us today at the IT Nation for the fire drill presentation, or a repeat of my fire drill situation. Um, um, I want to express my sincere gratitude for you making the time, because I know that time is precious. So in that time, I hope to both educate and perhaps even a little entertain you through my story, which many MSPs consider to be the ultimate nightmare scenario. Who am I? Robert Chiaffi, the CTO and co-founder of a MSP based in Yonkers, New York, which is just north of New York City. We were established in 1993. So we're going on our starting our 31st year, going into our 32nd year next year. And I only have, maybe 40, 45 minutes here to spend with you. And it's unfortunately not enough time to get the full breadth of the story. So I will invite you to connect with me in any means you like, whether that's live at a conference or on LinkedIn. You'll see my contact information at the end, but I'm not hard to find. And feel free to ask me questions. I'm always delighted to be able to help lift the community, be better, and be stronger and be more resilient. So why don't I just get into it here? Let's see, sorry. So July 2nd, 2021 was a glorious day in New York. And if you're from the Northeast or from the upper Midwest, or, really there's a lot of parts of the country, except for places like Florida and Texas and maybe California, where winters can be pretty brutal. And, in New York, it can be really cold. It gets dark early. It gets light late. We have short days. The ground is perpetually brown and the sky is perpetually gray. So when the summer comes, we really, flourish like dried up potted plants that are long overdue for water. So July 2nd, 2021 was an absolute magnificent, glorious day. Weathermen in these parts of the country will often describe these days to be one of the 10 best of the year. And not only was that Friday, July 2nd, 2021, one of those 10 best days of the year, but the forecast for the entire weekend and Independence Day, which was going to be celebrated on Monday, July 5th, was also just the weather forecast was spectacular. We had 3 parties to go to that weekend. Thankfully, none of them were at our house. So you know what that means, no cleanup, right? So all I had to bring was some alcohol and some food over to friends' houses. We were all delighted. My wife, my 2 children, we were all really excited about spending time with friends, the weather. I mean, everything was just picture perfect. We actually even had a boat ride scheduled with friends of ours on the Hudson River, if you know the area. And we were going to sail down to the island of Manhattan and check out the scenes and celebrate and just have a good time. And if you're running an MSP, on a Friday right before a 3-day weekend, what are your tickets like? Your ticket counts are super low. People are starting to disappear. We were planning on letting the team go a bit early that day, and it was around noon. I did something incredibly unusual for any MSP, and that is I decided to get up and have lunch. So I went into my kitchen around noon, like I said, and sat there just kind of, reflecting on the day and the weekend coming up, and my spirits were very light. And little did I know that about an hour and change before that, something sinister was lurking in our systems, and something incredibly awful was about to happen to upend and spoil every good mood that was floating around in my heart and in my head, as well as the entire office, as well as all of the 80 customers that we were supporting that day under our managed services plan, as well as clients beyond those 80 on our plan. So I'm sitting there in the kitchen eating lunch. I had just finished. It was about 2:20. I'm sorry, it was about 12:20. And one of my engineers walked in the kitchen, and we were kind of joking about something. It was just very light, the mood. And I saw as I was sitting at the kitchen table, which is sort of a long galley kitchen, looking out the kitchen door, which then faces a very long hallway across the second floor of our office building. And at the other end of that hallway is a staircase leading up from the first floor. And I saw my director of operations, Jay, come up to the top of the steps and make the turn down the hall. And I just instantly knew, even from that distance of about 40 feet or maybe more, that something was just really terribly wrong. I could tell even at that distance, the look on his face, the way he was kind of walking, his complexion. He's Filipino, so he's a darker complexion, and he just seemed a little bit like ashen. I could swear at that distance I could see him sweating, or at least just it's the way he presented himself coming down that hallway. And I kind of stood up and instantly knew in my heart that something really awful was about to take place, or something had already taken place. And my head went to all the bad places, right? Car accident, phone call from a family member. Did one of our engineers just, get into an auto accident? Hey, wait a minute. I don't remember seeing my business partner. I thought he was in his office, but I'm not sure. Did something bad happen to him? It was almost like those police officers showing up in that classic TV or movie scene where you open the door and there's two cops standing there and no words need to be exchanged. Everything is communicated by body language and expressions on faces. So I got up and I said to my engineer, Oscar, I said, holy shit, I think somebody just died. So the mood started to turn. I greeted Jay out in that hallway. So I came out of the kitchen and kind of caught him as he was most of the way down the hall. And I tried to both brace myself and feel like I needed to console him because he was definitely in anguish. I could tell his face was just twisted, and I knew he was carrying a heavy load in his mind. So Jay and I have a great professional relationship. We've worked together for a long time. We have a lot of mutual respect, and I just knew something terrible was happening. So I put my hands on his shoulders. I said, Jay, come on, tell me, like, what's going on here? And it took him a while to get it out. Like, it took him what felt like minutes, but was probably about 5 or 10 seconds. And he just looked at me and said, all of our customers are ransomwared. Now, that was not something that I think any of us, nor I that day, was prepared to hear. And it was just too surreal. And so I rejected his version of reality and tried to insert my own logic into this. How could it be all of them? That's wild fantasy. That's just something MSPs, freak out over at conferences and say, hey, imagine if, right? So I demanded to know which ones, Jay, which customer was ransomware. And he goes, no, it's all of them. And again, I insisted it can't be all of them. Which ones? And he did something which to this day we debate whether he did it consciously or subconsciously. And if we were in a room together, I'd probably ask you this question, but it's rhetorical at the moment. Ask yourself, which customers do you think he started to list first? And if you're thinking he listed customers by revenue size, you'd be correct. And I don't know why he did that, but he did. And as I heard each name, it was like, each name was like a collapsing giant slab of stone, pancaking me further and further down into the ground. It was, one after the next, relationships that had spanned some of which decades, some of them almost as old as the business itself. Personal relationships that you form with people, all these professional relationships that we had. And I just sort of imagined not only my company, but all of their companies figuratively on fire. So I didn't really know what to do. Hadn't really planned for this, never really tabletopped, didn't have an incident response plan, or at least nothing really formal. So instinct started to kick in, and something interesting also started to happen at this moment. I could see and hear throughout the office conversations, people on the phone. I could see them through glass walls, conversations. And these are snippets I'll give you some snippets of what I heard. I heard things like, I don't know what's going on. Let me get a tech. Please calm down. I think something system-wide is going on. I'm really not sure. Let me get some more information. I promise I'll call you right back. No. I've got to hang up. But let me call you back. I mean, there was panic. There was concern in people's voices. There was just a lot of chaos going on in the office. So I grabbed Jay and said, come on, let's go into my office. Let's sit down and figure out what the hell is going on here. I was still in denial at that moment. I was still thinking that there was something not as large and widespread as what now all the evidence seemed to tell me, that Jay's report of incoming phone calls and tickets were indicative that there was a mass scale attack, and as well as all the conversations I'm seeing and hearing. So when I got to my, I'm sorry, the fonts are a little bit off here. But when I got to my office, I opened up, I had my computer open, I opened Outlook, and there was the first email of many that started to come in from one of our largest and oldest and best customers. This was the first pelt of hailstones to arrive. And by November of that year, that customer decided to move to a different MSP. And they were one of handfuls that did make that transition eventually to another MSP because of this incident. So again, I'm sorry that the fonts are a little bit off, but I will read it to you in Italian first, as this is one of my languages. Lasciate ogni speranza voi chi entrate. And you know it from Dante's Inferno as abandon all hope ye who enter here. So there I was sitting at my desk, my heart racing, short of breath, sweating, not really knowing what the hell was going on or what I was even going to do about it. I logged into Kaseya VSA, our RMM, at the time, because I just knew instinctually that that's where the attack must be emanating from. And I'm clicking on things and searching through things and checking logs and looking at security settings and who's an administrator, who's logged on, trying to figure out what, just get some evidence. As I was working with two of my top engineers who are now on the phone with me, and Jace standing behind me at my desk, I could see every single icon on my desktop start to flip to that white box. And if you're not a technical person, essentially what that means is that now your computer has been ransomwared. It is one of the telltale signs, except for one, of course. There was a ransom note in a TXT file that was sitting on my desktop, which I will show you in a little bit. So you have to know something a little bit about me. And I'm imagining I'm going to describe many of you who are listening and or watching that there's a lot of personality tests out there, disc profiles. If you read the book, Make a Difference, I'm a lion. Some people are camels, monkeys, turtles, things like that. There's all sorts of tools and techniques that describe our personalities. Well, I have my own personality that I invented, or I should say that I'm writing my own personality book. And this book's only got one page, and it's probably only a paragraph or two long because it's only got one personality type. And that's a fixer, right? And that's what I am. I'm a fixer. It's a self-ascribed trait or label that I put on myself my entire life. Present me a problem, I'm going to figure it out. I don't even have the area of expertise. When I started driving cars, I started to figure things out. I would do all my own maintenance work on it because I could. I used to mess around with radios when I was much younger. So naturally, I landed in the IT business, right? Tinkering with computers. But I was broken at that point. I literally had not even an inkling of a thought in my head other than things like my multi-million-dollar business valuation just now went to zero, if not arguably negative, thinking about all of the lawsuits. I thought about my life plan with my family, my wife, my children. I thought about my oldest daughter who is in college, that I would likely need to recall her and give her the bad news that she would not be able to complete her junior and senior year because I wouldn't be able to afford it. I was proverbially standing at the gates of hell here. looking and staring into the abyss, contemplating even my own mortality, not knowing what to do, and completely frozen. Totally, totally, totally 100% not like me. So I was just instantly transported to this very dark place. I thought all hope was lost, and I really thought there was just no way out of this, and didn't understand. I mean, I couldn't bring myself to just leaving and packing up and going home. But I also saw no way out of fixing this. So that period of time took place for about 10 minutes in my office, where I just didn't know what to do. And knowing that the rest of the world was spinning around me and I needed to do something. So there I was, standing at the gates of hell, and I was looking for inspiration. I'm a huge history buff. So I channeled my inner Winston Churchill and remembered much of what he said during World War II in England. I've studied a lot of his tactics and his life. And I remembered this quote: "If you're going through hell, keep going." And I just knew that there was really only one way through this. I couldn't go backwards. I couldn't hit the undo button. I couldn't pray my way out of it. I needed to push those gates open and march through them, and march my team through them as well. So Jay was standing behind me, and he said something really almost trite. You know, when you hear what he said to me, like, if you were examining this from the outside, you'd say, those were the words, the encouragement. But really, I took them to mean it really motivated me. And he just simply put his hand on my shoulder because he knew I was faltering, and said, "Come on, Robert, we got this." Right. And, I was like, come on, that's like such a bullshit line. Like, what do you mean we got this? We're like on the brink of doom here. There's like almost no chance of survival for this. But I looked into the meaning. I looked into his own heart and understood that we needed to rally around each other, is really what he was trying to tell me. And that's what I read both in his eyes and I knew in his heart that this is really what he meant. I instantly opened the door and I told Jay, go downstairs, assemble the help desk team, pull them upstairs, get dispatch to start calling any tech that's in the field, get them dialing into the conference bridge. I barked at somebody else upstairs and told her, like, just go around, tell everybody who's on the phone to end those conversations and just get their butts in the conference room. Because I had this amazing speech I was about to give them, right? No, I actually had no idea what the hell I was going to tell them. But I was now in General Patton mode, right? And if you've studied history, you know that he was very brusque. So I became brusque because it's really the only way I knew how to power through this situation. So we assembled the team in the conference room. And there I was sitting there just waiting for the last few people to trickle in on the phone or in person. And I looked at my partner, who I have known even long before we started the business. Our relationship goes back to high school. I looked in his eyes and just knew that it was going to be our culture, if anything, was going to save us, right? That our core values became a critical asset for us in this horrific time. I believe it was Peter Drucker who said that culture eats strategy, and that is what I really leaned into. So I just leveled with the team. Listen, it's a bad situation. We don't have any answers. I know you're scared and confused. So am I. I mean, I even crumbled emotionally a few times during this. So don't make it seem like General Patton was in total control here, because he wasn't at all times. And I just reminded them, and I recited our values, which you see on the screen there, and just reminded them, like, these are the values that we need. We hold these values very dear and near to us, and now we're going to need them more than ever, right? And I gave them some marching orders about what they could tell customers, and that we were going to hit the Control Z somehow. We were going to somehow undo this mess. So this is just a quick image here. I actually still have that shirt. It's the symbol of chaos. If you know the mythological character Elric of Melnibone. If you don't, I won't bore you with the details. But the afternoon was complete chaos. There I am at the top of Camelback Mountain in Phoenix, and my IT Nation Evolve facilitator at the time, my buddy from Minneapolis, Rich Anderson. We were goofing around, and I pretended to be exhausted, and he pretended to pick me up. But I found that photo and said, how appropriate is this photo? I mean, it foreshadows what's going to come next. But I really didn't know what to say or do in those first couple of hours. We were in a complete state of chaos. It was my director of finance who finally came to me and said, Robert, we just renewed our cyber liability insurance. Do you think maybe we should call them? And if you want to laugh, our cyber liability insurance policy, we had just found a new carrier, a new broker, got a way better policy, and it went into effect that Monday, June 28th. So sometimes timing is everything, right? So what happened that weekend? After calling insurance and getting assigned what's called breach counsel, and I do want to talk about that word breach, but I'm going to save that conversation for a little later. But it's oddly enough, the attorneys are called breach counsel, even though there was no breach. It was especially torturous that weekend. Everybody was coming in at like 6:30 a.m. on Saturday. Clients were demanding that we show up and start restoring systems. And quite frankly, I mean, you may know forensically, and you'll learn a little bit forensically about what happened that day. But during that time, we didn't know, were the threat actors in systems for a year, 20 minutes, a month, a week? We had no idea. They exfiltrate data. What did they do? What did they get? What do they know? And how long have they been in there? And these were questions that we simply just didn't know. So it was really, really torturous that entire weekend. I want to give a quick shout out to Huntress, because we were only in a trial with them at the moment, and they were incredibly generous by taking our VSA log files and examining them by Saturday afternoon. They forensically had a complete report for us, which was then confirmed by Sunday afternoon by Kaseya's engineering team and their security experts, that at 10:49 a.m. on Friday, July 2nd, this attack began, and the threat actor exploited a zero-day exploit, bypassed every security setting. Even though we were fully patched, every single security setting, they walked right through our multi-factor and everything, uploaded Revel-Sode no Kibi, and pushed an executable out to every Windows desktop and laptop and server to install and run that ransomware. So it took about an hour and a half for all of those machines to become fully encrypted. When you put all your customers on SSD drives, that's what happens. Encryption happens super quick. And again, because of expediency of time, I'm going to go fast here. This is my buddy Kevin. He is a longtime IT Nation Evolve member since 2010 when we joined. And he was the first to put out an email to our Group 23, guys and gals that we have been networking with and spending many long hours across many days over many years in a peer group session meetings, getting to know each other and helping and pushing each other, holding each other accountable. And he just basically put this message out to say, hey, like, if we don't get to New York and help these guys, they're going to be toast. I was a bit pig-headed. I resisted their help at first, but within a couple of days, 3 leaders, Kevin from Massachusetts, my friend Paul from Santa Barbara, California, and our buddy Josh from Sterling, Kansas. If you know where that is, it's almost in the middle of nowhere. They each collectively brought several of their top engineers. So we had 3 business leaders plus 6 engineers in our office in a couple of days. This was like the scene out of Lord of the Rings when the Riders of Rohan show up just in time to turn the tide of the battle, right? And more came as word spread. But before I go there, I want to talk quickly about our encounters in hell. And I apologize, the fonts did not upload correctly. I tend to use a lot of crazy fonts, so I should have been better prepared for that. But I had a lot of time to contemplate after the attack. So I'm kind of fast forwarding now into August of that year. And I listed out a whole bunch of different things that could have happened, but that didn't. Like data exfiltration, for one thing, did not happen, nor did backup failure, as I'll tell you a little bit more. But certainly we had a tool set compromise. The scale of attack was 100%. The timing of the attack that weekend, one could argue, was that good or bad? I don't know. It felt bad. We eventually came to learn that some things within our policy did not fully cover us the way we thought it was. If anyone's ever been in an auto accident, very clearly what happens. You activate that auto policy, that insurance policy, and you start to learn what's covered and what's not covered, right? It seems like we sign off on these policies without really fully knowing what's in them without the experience. Lawsuits, we did have one. We ended up fighting that back and got it down to almost zero. Revenue loss, I mean, I lost, my partner and I are in acquisition mode looking for small MSPs in the New York City area. And essentially what we're looking for is the amount of revenue that we lost from that and the fallout of that attack. I thought about my reputational loss. I mean, how do you measure that? I'm thinking everybody's laughing at me and sneering at me and joking about me behind my back in my business community and in the MSP world. That's just human psychology playing crazy tricks on your brain. So, and then the emotional stress. Was this a total nightmare? I mean, it could have been worse. Like I liken this to the 9 layers of hell. We didn't find the bottom, but we were certainly in it, and we certainly came through it very singed and very bruised. But we, I think, fared a little better than what most people or what it could have been. So during our course or our trek through hell, we certainly found and encountered many angels and saints, and some came into hell with us to fight alongside of us. Axient, ConnectWise, Huntress, IT Nation, Evolve, Pax8, they all provided resources in immeasurable ways. Axient gave us engineers. Their technology worked flawlessly. By the way, we recovered 250 servers over the course of 17 calendar days. An amazing feat because we had no data loss. It's essentially what allowed us to tell the threat actors to go pound sand and not pay them the ransom they were looking for. ConnectWise stood up command for us instantly. Huntress, with their forensic analysis, IT Nation, Evolve sent many people to us, and as well as Pax8 offered us technical support. But there are the logos of many of the Evolve members who came to our aid. And I'll just quickly mention ACEs. A gentleman by the name of Jim Allen showed up. Jim heard through my friend Rich, who you saw earlier, was photographed at Camelback Mountain with. They knew each other, and Rich told Jim and his company about what happened to us. And Jim just, didn't ask permission, didn't call ahead. He just got on an airplane from Iowa and showed up at my doorstep in New York saying, "I'm here to help." It almost brought me to, I had a lot of tears those days, and that one really hit hard for me. They were good tears. They were tears of joy, but it's just amazing to see what this community is all about. And so I applaud Jim and plus 27 other contractors. Just to give you an idea of scale, I mentioned the 250 servers. We had approximately 2,500 endpoints under management, including those 250. Across 80 managed partners or managed clients in 200 physical locations across 4 time zones in the United States. So you can imagine we had quite a task at hand. And I don't think that my team of 30 people back in that July of 2021 would have been able to handle that without all of the help that we received in the myriad of ways that we did. On the left is Yaroslav Vasinski. He was the perpetrator or one of the perpetrators in this attack. And there is his accomplice, Yevgeny Igorovich Polyanin. Polyanin is still at large, living in South Central Russia. Yaroslav, 22-year-old Ukrainian national, or at least he was at the time of the attack. ended up crossing the Ukraine-Polish border in 2021, later in that year, was being tracked by the FBI. They tipped off Interpol and the Polish authorities. He was captured in Poland, held and extradited to the United States within 5 months, which is lightning fast if you know anything about the law. He pled guilty, and I was there this year twice in federal court to not only read a victim impact statement, but also to witness his sentencing. So he's serving 14 years, retroactive from the moment that he was caught. One of the reasons I wanted to put Yaroslav's face up there is take a look at this kid. He's all of about 5'6". I was about 10 feet away from him in that courtroom. He looked like he was about 120 pounds wet. Look at his face. Does that look like the face of somebody who you see in all the images that we see in marketing materials? Does he look like he walks around with a hood, or he's a tough guy? I know Pollyannan kind of fits more of that profile, but a lot of people are more on the other side, on that left side of the screen, where, this is the face of the enemy right here. And that's why I have this slide up here. There's the ransom note. So from Kaseya, they wanted 70 million for a universal decrypt key, or I could have paid them $6 million, or they wanted $45,000 per file type. But that's the actual ransom note screenshot. I still have it. I've redacted all of the IP addresses and links to the dark web, as you might imagine. So I'm sorry, my animation is also a little goofy. I spoke about Yaroslav's arrest and extradition to the United States. The point of this is that there's all these articles, and you can go look it up if you don't know too much about this story. There's tons of articles about it. Krebs on security. It made international news. But it was really for that reason that Kaseya started to get some bad press, and politically, PR-wise, it just couldn't go back. Even though I thought it was an excellent product, I just could not go backwards to Kaseya. A lot of people asked that question, so I wanted to kind of get that out there about why we decided to move away from them. Is there justice? And again, animations are kind of not here. People say, hey, do you feel vindicated that you were there? You read your statement. The federal court heard you. The FBI heard you. The Department of Justice heard you. Your attacker heard you. Sure, yeah, there's some closure there, but it's more like a wound being cauterized, right? That wound is a scar that will be with me forever. It is painful. And when I say me, I'm really talking on behalf of my entire company. It'll be with us forever. There's an emotional scar. There's a level of PTSD that I have over this that just simply won't go away. So I don't look at this story as linear in that fashion. It has different branches, and this branch, I think, is closed. So I'm sorry, again, the animation and fonts here are all kind of goofy, but I spoke about the number of the impact on us. So there's some of those stats there. We were one of about 60 Kaseya VSA customers. Co-op, which is a Swedish supermarket, closed 500 stores throughout Europe because all their cash registers were being managed by an MSP. Those cash registers running Windows, and to manage those cash registers, you got it, they were running Kaseya VSA, so they were all ransomware. But there were police departments in the state of Texas, there were Maryland towns. There were over 1 million systems attacked worldwide over this. So I want to get quickly through lessons learned. Not all good communication is good. So just watch your 5 C's in any kind of crisis. You got to make sure that you're counseled by legal. But I push back on my attorneys because every one of their communications read like a legal contract. And, we're in the business of relationships. So I would, I wrestled with our attorneys nicely to make sure that they wrote things in a style. I've almost got like a co-pilot in my head, like rewrite this in a softer tone. And that's exactly what we did, just without AI tools. So we made communications more considerate. We made them consistent. If you're ever in a crisis, One big lesson I learned, because I got a lot of angry phone calls like, hey, what the hell's going on? And I'm like, hey, we're working our butts off trying to get everything fixed here. Clients just want to know that you're still alive. You haven't, cashed in all your accounts and moved to some deserted island or ran away. So it was important for us to just keep a good cadence going. And we wanted to make these communications as clear and concise as possible. A ransomware attack, as you already know, full of technical jargon and details and very confusing to the non-technical person. We needed to make sure that we made those things clear. You got to remember, you have lots of audiences, right? You have clients, which are the obvious, but don't forget to communicate well with your internal team, with your vendors, where we got such tremendous help from. I could have ignored their phone calls, but I took their phone calls and we worked with them and communicated with them in our recovery efforts. You're going to be speaking to insurance. You're going to be speaking to law enforcement. You're going to be speaking to legal representatives that are both representing you and representing your clients. I've talked to more FBI agents and lawyers that I care for in that span of about a couple of weeks or 2 months I ever care for, that fills up a whole lifetime. And don't forget that you also have to be communicating with family and friends. I do have a funny story about some of that mishaps, but you'll have to catch me and ask me about the wife story some other time, because just men are obviously so good at communicating with their significant others, aren't we, gentlemen? So no, I did not communicate well with her, and it led to a series of funny events. But I mentioned the word breach, and I hear a lot of people tossing that word around. You should do yourself a favor and go look up what that word means. It has legal implications. So I would advise you, if you really want to sound like a true IT authority and very informed and educated in this space, stop saying the word breach. I hear it a lot. Maybe I'm being nitpicky here, but I would encourage you to go look it up and use it in its proper context. But you can say things like incident or attack. And a CISO once told me, Robert, we don't even say those. We say investigation. So just things to consider. Left of boom, you may have a very high functioning company with very clear accountabilities and roles. But right of boom, we learned very quickly that there were a bunch of people, finance, sales and marketing, account management, that didn't really have a lot to do during a technical, mass recovery. So we looked for different creative ways to leverage them. We turned them into couriers and taxi drivers for all these technicians that came in to help us, to help out with communications, food. It sounds really silly, but if you've got a technician who's putting 16, 18 hours a day at a client or at 3 different clients and hasn't had a bite to eat or a drink, a cold soda or something, like just bringing them food was a massive relief. And just so even a hand on their shoulder to say, we appreciate you. Your processes and tools will change. ConnectWise is an awesome platform to manage your business when things are normal. But what we essentially did is we took a blank wall in an empty office and used Post-it notes, green for days of week, pink for client names, and orange for technical people. And it's just like one of those old World War II movies where you see generals pushing, ships and tanks and troop models on a board with long sticks. It was highly effective to be incredibly fluid and dynamic during those times. So you want to even think about and in our case, for a 24-hour period, we had no access to any of those systems because they were encrypted. So is it over? Not quite yet. I do want to leave you within the few minutes that I have remaining here, a couple of things I want to impress upon you. And the first is that there is no shame in victimhood. I hear a lot of people who have said to me, I had an incident in 2019, 2020. I had the same incident in 2021. You've inspired me to come out and talk about it. And there's a natural reaction to feel shameful. I still carry shame, right? It's still hard for me to get up in front of groups. It's hard for me to do this now. But I have to suppress this feeling that being a victim comes with shame. And we've got to dispel that myth right away. And anyone, especially on Reddit, who's firing missiles and projectiles at you, from behind their secret keyboard anonymously and their mouse clicks, that just that does not serve our community well. So if you're a victim, you should raise your hand. You should ask for help. You should not feel shame. It's okay to carry a lot of emotion, but it's okay. And there's a lot of friends out there like me who I don't may not even know you, but if you called me, I would help you, and I wouldn't cast judgment. And there is strength in vulnerability, and that's kind of what I've been talking about already. Is if you are vulnerable, you will find that most people, most normal, caring human beings out there, they will not throw you under the bus. They will not castigate you or crucify you publicly. They will come to your aid. And so your vulnerability is a source of strength to say, I need help. Here's my situation. Being vulnerable, even with your customers, to let them know that this is a bad situation, but you're going to get the help required to make them whole. And then finally, the missing element, I believe, is community. So when you're out at trade shows and you are when you are looking at different stacks and tool sets and things like that, remember that your friends are out there in the peer community to help you, which is why I'm just going to encourage you to go to that website, MSP 911. We're in the middle of a little bit of a reorg with it, but it's an opportunity for people who are victimized to be able to get help for free. We are 100% volunteers. We do not get paid, but we are fully funded by CompTIA to make sure that we can help victims in their time of need. So that's it. I'm pretty much out of time. You can find me on LinkedIn at n/rchaffee. My email address is robertc@progressivecomputing.com. I should be very easy for you to find. I'm very visible at events, and I am very outspoken about our event with the hopes that I can help others increase their security posture, be stronger, be better, and not to feel like there's any shame in victimhood, and that if they ever find themselves in a problem like that, that they'll ask for help instead of suffering alone. So I think that brings us to the conclusion. I want to thank you again for your time that you've given me, and I hope that I have helped affect you and your business and your customers in a positive way today.
Hey, IT Nation. Welcome to the emotional roller coaster of transition. My name is Scott Scrogin. We're going to talk today about the mental health impact and how can you prepare for the change in your purpose and identity. Now, I'm glad to be joined today by my good friend, Brent Whitfield. Hello, Brent.
Hello, Scott.
Hey, I
Good to
will
be here.
introduce myself very briefly. I'm the Strategic Initiatives Director with ConnectWise. I have worked at a MSP. I've worked growing the HTG peer groups, now Evolve, and now I get the opportunity to work on great projects like this. Brent, how about an intro?
Hi, everybody. Yep, Brent Whitfield from New Charter Technologies. I ran an MSP called DCG Technical Solutions in Los Angeles for 27 years, and was one of the first four that formed the basis of New Charter Technologies. We're a national platform operating in 37 cities. We have 26 operating companies with 25 founders, just like myself, still working in New Charter. And we're trying to build an MSP the industry hasn't yet seen.
So, Brent, I can tell from your background, you've got, as you said, 25 founders. You've seen, therefore, 25 of these transitions in some form. Maybe partners who haven't certainly left IT, they're still running the operating company, but you've at least dealt with partners who've gone from being entirely, let's say, their own boss to those of you that are now influenced in a different way because of whom they're with, and you've also seen the broader community. So you're well positioned to be a subject matter expert in this topic.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting ride, and your title, the emotional roller coaster of M&A, is so it's spot on, because there's a lot of ups and downs in this thing, and it's going to be fun to get to talk about it a little bit today.
Yeah, you bet. And I will share a couple quick things. One is that I had the privilege last year to speak to 800 partners nationwide on the topic of mental health in the workplace. And that really spun off into what has been for me years of involvement with partners, facilitating peer groups, seeing partners sell, and really now understanding much deeper, taking a real interest in the impact of emotional health and just the overall transition that we're going to talk about here today. So let's get rolling. The way we're going to do this is break it down very simply. You've heard a little bit from us. We're going to talk about why the topic, some of the challenges and problems. We'll take a look at the opportunities and solutions, and then some resources, next steps, and takeaways. We don't have a lot of time here today. In the streaming, don't hesitate to pause the stream and think and read the slide a little bit more deeply. We're also going to share some resources that you're going to have that are going to allow you to go a lot more deeply. Now, we named the topic dealing with the roller coaster because that's really what it is. Some of you are huge roller coaster fans. Some of you want to stay away from that. Maybe put your kids or grandkids on the roller coaster. But for all of us, when we're dealing with a type of transaction, and our focus again is on transition, the analogy, as Brett mentioned, of roller coaster is right on. You'll see that from some of the partner quotes that we're dealing with. Now, how do we think of that more from a pure transaction and transition perspective? Why this topic is important is we talk about transactions all the time. Brent mentioned the many that he's seen and dealt with. And really, if we look at the overall timeline here, we can think of this more broadly, obviously from a pre-transaction, and what a less thought about time frame is post-transaction. But within that, we really have our lives and the classic sands through the hourglass spanning, where we get to think of it in terms of before we were even in business, we took time emotionally to think about what our life and legacy is going to be, or we at least framed that up, or we were framed by our parents and by our identity as to what we thought we would make of ourselves. We got into business, we had a business life balance or maybe lack thereof, but we had our business operations before we made a decision to begin to start to make this transaction preparation. Now, for some people, that happens very quickly. For others, they actually plan for it, and that's what we're advocating. On the backside of the transaction, we have the post-transaction, and that can be months. For some people, it's very smooth, but for others, it's not. And then we move into what we call a next chapter. And that next chapter is just that. It doesn't mean retirement, fishing, Netflix, and golf. It can mean all sorts of different activities. 80% of partners who sell, at least early in their lives, go on to some form of IT involvement. And last but not least, as we transition to more of the traditional life and legacy focus. So just to be clear, our focus today is on this time frame, this window between pre and post transaction. So I'm going to start off here with a quote, and I'm going to end up sharing a document, but this quote specifically, I want to share out saying that really it sums up what we're talking about today. You know, the partner says it's so counterintuitive. Someone hands you that pile of money. It's more money than you thought your business was worth in many cases. You'd expect that someone like that would be really happy, but in this case, the partner wasn't. Now, Brent, I'll come to you and say, have you ever known somebody, maybe not in New Charter, but somebody in general who felt that way?
Yeah, so in our model, the owners stay, and so they aren't really like set out fishing or golfing, and so we don't have that like kind of cliff where the vendors aren't calling, their employees aren't calling, and their clients aren't calling anymore. So I don't see this exact scenario, but what I do see is a kind of an emotional transfer of some of the authority and some of the decision making that has to happen. I speaking from my own experience, during the first, and we've been at this almost 5 years. During my first year as now a partner of New Charter, I don't think I showed up in a way that I was like particularly proud of at times. I think that I struggled most with that whole idea that it just wasn't my show, and it wasn't my show to completely run anymore. Mitch Morgan, who was the president and CEO of New Charter, and I had some adjusting to do to get through that. And we laugh about it now, but it was a struggle.
Yeah. It's a struggle for a lot of people, and we'll have a couple quotes that emphasize that as well. So if we continue on and talk about the challenges and problems that are happening, you know, I'll use the analogy comparing the roller coaster picture we saw at the beginning with this roller coaster. And as I tell the quick story, I lived in a small town in Kansas that hosted the state fair, and they'd come out and they'd set up the roller coaster. My parents would get nervous because they thought it was a roller coaster like this, and they could never trust that it wasn't going to be unsafe. And that's the type of journey, that's the type of ride that some of our partners are on in general. And that can come from lack of preparation. That can come from, just not taking the time or understanding really what they're getting into. So more looking at that a little more scientifically, or a little more based on the data, this is a classic, as what this document you'll see in the footnote. This is a reference out of a Yale article speaking to the entrepreneur's epilogue, but it's relatively similar change management. If you look at the y-axis, you see it ranging from very happy to not happy. And if you look at the x-axis, it's over time. And this happens to show from 0 to 24 months. But it could be any time frame. It could be any amplitude here. It's just a generalized representation of the fact that when the sale happens, when the transaction happens, there's high potential for, elation and euphoria. Back to that quote, people are happy to have received the money. When you trend that downward, unfortunately, what we find more than people think is there's really the potential to be confused or lost. Now, again, not in, say, the case that Brent's talking about where they're flowing right in, but for many partners that are walking away from their business, say, again, we're looking at the broader community here, not simply private equity purchases, that they can be confused or questioning. At some point, even Brent will admit that those owners are going to be exiting New Charter. They're going to be in, I will say, unchartered, no pun intended, Brent, waters in terms of where they're headed. There's going to be that point in life. And what we want to make sure is when they come out of that time frame, that's a new next chapter for them, that they're able to pause and reflect, and they're able to think, and they're able to cycle back up to the happy side of the ledger. Now, I'm going to make a quick stop here just to make sure we're on the same page for definition of terms. Retirement is typically defined here, as you can see, as a time when somebody chooses to permanently leave the workforce behind. So most of us are in agreement there. You've already heard me use the term next chapter. And that's a term we use internally on the IT Nation team to refer to a period in somebody's life when they've crossed a milestone. I mean, people have a next chapter when they go from high school to college, say from college to the workforce. Maybe they enter a next chapter when they have kids. They go into a next chapter at some point when they exit their business, obviously, or go to full retirement. All these points in time. But one of those clearly is, as we're talking here, focused on the time the entrepreneurial owner sells their business. Most of these really are still perspective values. They're subjective as to when you view your next chapter. Now, thinking of next chapters, here's one way to visualize what we're talking about. And you'll notice on the left that there's sale or exit of some kind, and that forks really obviously into one of two places. Again, simply put, you're working or you're retiring. And I know sometimes it's not that easy because it may be part-time work or part-time retirement. But let's go down the work path. You can see it forking into either IT work or non-IT work. What I talked about before is the majority of IT professionals stay in IT, but then they assume one of these four roles, and you can see those listed there. Now, many times somebody who was working before and does a sale may now give them the opportunity to be an operator or an employee in the company, or maybe they go into investing or become a coach. Likewise, even if they go non-IT, we have people that buy franchises of different businesses, or they go into real estate investing, or they do other things. And clearly down the retirement track, maybe heavily into volunteering or what I call active pursuits. They've developed a broad set of hobbies. And, Brett, if you look at this and say, is this something that reflects what you can see as the paths of partners you've been in the industry over years, and whether they're in New Charter or not, this is at least a starting point for how people can think about their next chapter.
Yeah, this represents really well the, kind of the different options in terms of, get out and go do something else, or stay in and become a somewhat different person. In the New Charter, on the New Charter platform, the next chapter always looks a lot different than the first chapter that got us here. But we all become investors in the platform. We all reinvest up to a third of the money that we're paid, and now we're basically shareholders in what we hope will be $1 billion company here in another year or so. Mm-hmm. And the idea there is that we're all owners of each other's businesses, and we're there shoulder to shoulder to help each other. But during that next chapter, we kind of go from being the CEO to being an operating company founder who's really coaching. I actually got a shirt that says coach that I wear under my coat some days, because that is how we see ourselves as we get the next generation of leaders ready. Because we're all kind of, we're all different ages. Some of us are going to age out sooner than others. And so we prioritize that chapter in terms of it's a little bit like consulting, we're consulting with our next generation of leaders so they can do in a year or two what we learned over 25 or 30 years. And so our coaching there is really critical.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to move on and talk here about one of the deliverables that we created and that we cover, and really is the basis for this work. And I will call this how we built this transitioning to your next chapter document. And you've seen in those previous quotes, they're all somewhat footnoted and saying from the transitioning to your next chapter document. And, there's lots of different ways to do research. You can do research where you conduct surveys. You can do research where you do focus groups. And in my case, what I wanted to do was do direct interviews with partners who had sold their businesses and transitioned. That seemed like the most logical way to really collect feet on the street quality input that could be shared with other partners. So what I began doing here was to start by gaining owner insights. In other words, here's that quote that you saw from the very beginning. So I got this from a partner, and then I started collecting more quotes. And as you can see here, there's quotes. And again, you can pause the live stream and read these. I'm not going to slow down and read all these to you, but things about how it would have been good if they planned, or how that they didn't have enough of a plan, or that the fact that they weren't though they found that partners who were seeking the biggest dollar amounts, that wasn't always the best way to go in the transaction. Or that the fact was they'd dealt with some depression, clinical depression, and what they were dealing with in their transition. And then we got more quotes, and it was from the standpoint of, some partners even went on medication for what they experienced, and some partners didn't like being an employee. Others made the comment that they never felt wealthier than the day that they actually sold, and from there it was somewhat all downhill. And just a lot of comments. So if you talk to enough partners, you build this library of quotes, and then you can look across for patterns and trends in what you see. And from that, I built this, and that is the 10 lessons. And when you get the document, you can read through these, or you can pause the live stream now and look at these 10. No big surprise that it leads off with planning and preparing years prior to selling. It's kind of the Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind, or be proactive. But down through here, and the topics we're really focused on today fall into more of these 5 in the middle. And you'll notice the one that says transaction, excuse me, that really relates to whether somebody wants to take a break between the transaction and other work, or maybe that they are making a decision to be an owner, or an operator or employee. But from this, then, we took the time to assemble all of the quotes into a common document that includes those lessons and an appendix. This is the document that we can share out for attendees that will help you have a much better understanding. So if we move beyond this, I'm going to jump to another quote that we pulled out. And I just sum this up by saying, a key lesson here, and this is the roller coaster quote, that partners, again, not saying this is, and Brent already pointed this out from the standpoint of New Charter, but for so many partners that haven't gone on to work or were uncertain about where they were headed, they'd never experienced the ups and downs emotionally in a short time like this. For the first 3 months, they were at a loss. They were excited about their bank account, but they lost their significance. And I think everybody can appreciate, if your identity is really tied up in the business, if you're a business owner, all those areas that can really be a loss. Now, before I come to Brent, I'm going to go to the next quote and tie this one in. You can see here that you can appreciate some cases for 20, 30, 40 years. They're used to going 100 miles an hour, and it really slams on the brake. The customers may not be calling, the vendors aren't calling, and your employees aren't talking anymore if you're all the way out of the business. And that's an emotional change if your identity and your purpose are wrapped up in being a business owner. And having some clarity around that, as we were told by partners who've been through this, would be a really good thing. Now, Brent, you alluded to this a little bit earlier. Any other thoughts here on these quotes? Or again, for partners that are going to exit New Charter, they're going to have to be prepared for this.
Yeah, and I think some of us think we're immune from some of this because our model dictates that we stay. It really is an important part of it. But I mentioned a minute ago, we're all going to age out of the. Oh, I think I lost you guys.
You're back, I think, Brent. I got you now. So I think we may have lost Brent. We'll see if he comes back. I'll kind of
Are you hearing me okay?
I got you now.
Okay. I got it. I think it just came back. I apologize. My neighborhood's having some internet issues today, and I guess that's something that's going to happen with live stream. What I was starting to say, though, was that we kind of thought we were immune from this because of our model. We all stay, we all work. But about a third of us are going to age out and move on. And I've already circulated, because we've done this once before together, I've already circulated the white paper amongst my founders, because I think that some of these things that are described will be something we'll all have to face. How are we going to fill our week, once we're not, running a national platform. So I love that you created that, and I'm sharing it with all of my founders. And I think it's going to be very valuable.
Outstanding. So what we've done so far is really to kind of hopefully you see some of the challenges and problems that can exist. In the time we have today, we can't deliver you a magic pill, but what we can start to do is talk about some of the opportunities and solutions that we're building here and ways that you as partners, attendees can take advantage of those. Now, one of the things that I point out clearly is that sometimes we have to change our perspective. That perspective can come from not riding the traditional roller coaster. Maybe we have to get dunked. Sometimes I say maybe we have to get waterboarded or shook up a little bit in terms of how we think. We have to take action. We can't just sit there and be reactive in what's going to happen. And one of the ways we're doing that is to try to build out a series of options here, some tools and programs. And what you'll notice here is simply 3 parts as color coded. And in the far left in green, what you see is exactly what we've done so far. We built this essay and content to be able to be shareable. And as we speak today, we're on the emotional roller coaster presentation. If we move across to blue, what you see is we're going to be building out a 1-pager where we can have a quick conversation, a workbook, and then also a workshop. I actually delivered the workshop 2 times this week to trial that and get it to the point where it's been iterated so that we're ready to go. And last but not least is that community and that group. You could even put Brent New Charter in that category, that you've got your own community, your own group to help deal with that, so that when somebody leaves, they're not on an island. If I go a level deeper than that, we start to kind of peel that back and say, well, what do you mean by those high level? What are some other options? And there on the left, you'll see things like doing more writing, getting it more out into the clear, getting it out on social media. You'll also see a transition, what's called a transition plan canvas. I'm going to show you that here in just a minute. I won't read everything in blue, but as obviously we can write more profiles of partners that have been successful to help understand and model. We can build what I would call a parallel to most of you are familiar with operational maturity level, or OML. We can do something along the lines of transition maturity level. Where are you in that transition? Are you in the infancy where you haven't really thought much about this? Or are you much more mature and ready to go? And last but not least, if we move to the far right, you get to see a deeper conversation around the ecosystem. What if the platforms, what if the consultants, what if the concept of transition was built into their process, where on the front side of the transaction, people were made aware of what's going to happen on the other side. And on the other side, there was support for them in a way that didn't leave them hanging. And you can even see every session that I did, including the ones last week, you'll get plenty of hands that go up from partners who are willing to be go-givers. They're alumni, they're willing to be mentors, they're willing to be coaches, just as Brent said, and to help other partners out. One of the examples, really 2 of the examples here I want to show, and then Brent and I will have some additional conversation. One of those is I made reference to this transition plan canvas. Now, this is a tool that we slow down and go through in the actual workshop. But what I want to point out is the canvas is, just think of it as, we always talk about a single pane of glass in IT. And this is a single plan on a page. And this gives us the ability to answer at the high level 3 main questions. How desirable is that next chapter? How feasible is that next chapter? And how viable is that next chapter? And then we also look at some external factors, things that we may or may not control. But as you can see here, we look at a next chapter. What's your purpose? What's your value that you're providing? How does your identity change? How do your relationships change? Because really, it's your purpose, your identity, your relationships, and your time structure that are very critical. In those are kind of the 4 horsemen, if you will, that everybody has to deal with in moving to this next chapter. Now, I won't go into parts 2 and 3. You can see these here, but they're key as well. Again, are you going to address the challenges and risks proactively? Do you know the type of pursuits that you would follow? Across the bottom, you can see the classic, as we call them, time, treasure, and talent. What are you going to do from philanthropy? What are you going to learn? So a variety of activities here that are covered in the workshop. Continuing this is another conversation around, again, what I refer to as active pursuits. Most of you would look at this right now and you might say, well, I'm doing 10 of these today. But as you get to a point in time when you have more time, or it's now you and a spouse who are looking to do things together more integrated than independently, when you were at the office, say, or you both had individual jobs, whatever the case may be, is we, as part of the workshop, slow down here and start to think about what can I do to make my time productive, so that the example that came up in our workshop yesterday, one of the partners said, I found myself literally sticking my nose in my wife's baking. I had no knowledge of baking, but I would come into the kitchen and try to coach her on baking. And she about, threw the proverbial frying pan at me and said, "Get out of here. You know nothing about what you're doing." But I simply didn't know what to do with my time. Well, speaking of time, if you want to be a little bit, have a pit in your stomach, most of you haven't seen this for 10 or 20 years. And you know what it is? It's kind of a unicorn or rainbow. It's a blank Outlook weekly calendar.
Mm.
Now, for most of you, you're looking at this and you're saying, wow, I wish I had that. I have no problem filling this. But in reality, in the conversations that I've had with partners, is there is a problem filling it. And they start saying, you know what? I can only play golf, and again, Netflix, and again, go hang out with the guys and, have coffee. And again, that's could be even they could still be doing things like planning vacations, or they could still have a part-time job. The bottom line is there's going to be a shift in how you structure your time.
Scott,
Brent,
I didn't share this during our live presentation before, but I wanted to share it on this one. When I joined up with the other 4 founders of New Charter, none of us really knew how it was going to go. We would hear about founders being put out to pasture after an acquisition was done, and that wasn't our model. But none of us really knew whether that was going to happen or not to us, because there was no track record like we have now after being into this almost 5 years. So what I did, I didn't add more golf, or I didn't add any new hobbies, but I started a business with my son. He was 28 at the time, and fast forward 4 years later, he bought me out in December of last year. And he's off and running his infrastructure as a service company for AI and blockchain. So he's doing really, really well. But that was my fallback. I thought, well, worst case is I can do this. And for the first couple of years where they needed gray hair, I would show up to meetings and stuff. But New Charter's got me so busy, I really had to pull back in a way. And he expressed an interest in buying my shares, so I sold them back to him. And that was my fallback.
Excellent. I've got a couple of quotes here as we start to lead into the wrap up. And, one of these quotes talks, again, bringing this back to the mental health side. And, as the quote speaks to, the mental health and going to talk to someone is really important. As this partner said, I tell people all the time, you may want to have somebody that you speak to before the transaction's over. Again, this idea of planning and preparing. And they say from a clinical health perspective, make sure you're in a good place and make sure you have that foundation before you're out of the business, as opposed to looking for help after the fact. What you don't want to be in is, it's really a disaster recovery model, right? That you can explain and compare to as a metaphor. Is you don't want to be chasing the disaster or the breach or whatever it is. You want to prepare for that in advance, whether it's friends or an actual therapist, whatever the case could be. Now I'll move to the last quote that I have. And this is my favorite quote because it really sums this up nicely. And you'll see the discussion that is so common where, we as IT Nation, ConnectWise, the community can say, we know the numbers. We know what best in class is. We can learn all the M&A best practices. We can dial in our valuation and negotiate as hard as we want to negotiate. But as we say, there's so little energy that goes into what's next. Have you talked to your spouse? Do you have a plan? Is there a framework for how you're going to work out the time in a common retirement purpose? There's that purpose word again. And he says, I think it's more important than ever to I think it's important that even getting a good valuation matters, Sure, they got money, but in the end, who cares? I want to have a good life with my wife, my family, and my friends. And I think that that really, really drives home what I want to get across today. And Brent, you feel that feel similarly?
Yeah, I had seen a therapist over the years. I kind of don't mind saying it because she's been such a help to me in dealing with issues with my family and kids. And I hadn't seen her for a while. And when we were getting close to transaction time, it took us about 6 months. I had to settle some stuff with the building and some things that made this take longer. But I engaged her, and she didn't really. She was such a big help in helping me see kind of what I needed to do and how I needed to look at this, that it was a big transition and not to sweep it under the rug and look for significance. A lot of the things that you put in these slides is things that she said, look, you gotta find significance somewhere, somehow. And so it was really a big help to have that, every couple of weeks I'd see her through the transaction, and it was really good.
You bet.
Highly recommend it.
I appreciate you telling that story. I tell the same story about the fact that I've managed bipolar illness for 30 years and see a therapist myself, and you'd be surprised in the interviews I had of how common that is. I think the good thing is much of the stigma around that has subsided, and you don't worry at all about wearing a coach shirt around or having a golf coach.
Right.
Guys look at that positively, but you say you're getting a mental coach, and all of a sudden you get kind of the side eye as to how that's going to be. So appreciate you sharing that. And the reality here is you hear all of this, and it's a little easy to think that the roller coaster is going to bottom out. And we all saw that roller coaster curve earlier in the presentation. But the good news is that when the roller coasters go down, they're fast, they're coming back up. We've got resources to help, be they medical or otherwise. The networks of friends and family and community are so critical. So we're going to transition here into wrapping up with some resources, next steps, and takeaways. Brent, I'll come to you for a takeaway or two, but just sharing easily, here are some books that I've found. I know Brent's seen some of these as well. Everything from more the psychological focus on meaning to how to deal with after work, leadership, self-leadership, health, habit forming. So many of these improvements are tiny changes like you see in Atomic Habits. Philanthropy, the Die with Zero book, is very interesting for those of you that are thinking about generational wealth and distribution. The Built to Move, it's going to be very difficult if you don't have the flexibility, the mobility, the strength, the cardio to get out and do things you really want to do after you transition, and then a collection of resources related to retirement. So if I move to some next steps, my recommendation simply is to read the Transitioning to Your Next Chapter essay. If you read it end to end, I'll be very surprised if you don't pick up on certainly some themes. You'll have your own that relate to your individual case, and incorporate some of those into your plans. Get out in front of this. Figure out some ways that you can leverage the advice you're getting from other peers. Want to invite you to attend any of the IT Nation events that are coming up. We've got a new property we call IT Nation Grow, which is focused exactly on helping partners transition more than simply conduct a transaction. The next event there's August 15th in Denver. For those of you that can make it to Sydney, Australia, we've got IT Nation Sydney, of which we'll have Grow content there. We have IT Nation Connect, which we've had M&A content there for the last at least 6 or 7 years. And then we have the IT Nation Evolve peer groups, of which also include content and planning, similar type activities, and many peers on a similar journey. So with that, Brent, I'd come to you as a sum up. Any takeaway or additional points you'd like to mention?
Yeah, it's so interesting. When I do these M&A talks, it's very often the audience wants to know, well, how is your platform dealing with AI, and what are you doing to get ahead of the security issues? And, what about long-term contracts? But what I would say to this audience is, all of that's kind of important. And it's kind of table stakes when you're looking at being acquired or acquiring another company. But but don't ignore this piece, this emotional roller coaster and this mental health aspect of being acquired or acquiring companies. Don't ignore it. It's interesting, when Arlen asked me to do this, Scott, with you, and I heard the title, I'm like, well, yeah, I'll do it. But that doesn't really quite apply to our model because we're all but one of us stayed. But what I learned after getting the white paper and hearing the questions from the audience and hearing you present is that this really applies to all of us. And no matter where we're at kind of on our journey, this next chapter is coming for all of us. And I appreciate very much that you created this, and I'm gonna enjoy. Chris and I are actually enjoying getting this out to the rest of the founders and getting this incredible takeaway into their hands.
Yeah, appreciate the kind words, and I think as Arlen Sorensen says, you're going to transition out of your business one way or the other. You're going to do it vertically, or you're going to do it horizontally, if you know what I mean. And you control that. You have that control if you slow down enough to do a little bit of planning, tweak a few dials, you leverage the right resources, get involved in the community, take advantage of tools like we're presenting today, work with your spouse and your relationships, take a review back at those top 10 lessons learned, not from me, but from your fellow peers. So with that, Brent, I'm going to sign off and say, as everybody in the audience starts to crest over, some transition, whatever it may be in their life, is to take the time to plan, prepare, and we want to thank everybody for attending today.
Thank you all. Thanks, Scott.